again. All right, so everyone joining us today, happy Monday. We have a very special session for you today. My name is Amanda Godoy, and I am a medical student at Cardiff University. I am part of the Med School Extra team, and today myself and Dr. Mia MacDade Kumar are going to be leading the session with Dr. André Fernandes, who will be guiding you on every single step of the journey being a doctor in the UK. So we're going to be talking about building a competitive CV, getting started in the NHS and adapting to the system, and also applying to specialty training. Before we start, I just wanted to go through a couple things with you. First of all, is that some of the members in our team are they're involved in the extra study. And the extra study is analyzing how prepared you are for your career development, toward analyzing teaching, leadership experience, research, and several aspects that make up a good doctor's career. You have several benefits of being involved in this study. You're going to be participating in a national study. It's conducted in the UK, in the whole of the UK, getting all of the medical students involved. You also can receive a personalized certificate of participation, which contributes to your involvement in medical education. You can also enter a prize draw to enter a spot in an exclusive career mentorship program. So having someone that can give tailored guidance to your career. So if you can scan the QR code on your screen, it will take you to a page. It will take less than 10 minutes to complete. So really encourage you all to do that. And just going to give you a second to scan the QR code if you haven't already. And before we get started with the session, make sure that you are interacting on the live chat. We are doing this through YouTube, so you can interact on the chat. Our speaker has many breaks in between his talk, so make sure that you're putting the questions in, because he's going to be addressing them as we go and also towards the end. So make sure you're putting lots of comments on the chat. Make sure to share this with 3 other friends, because we're giving this information absolutely free and from the comfort of your home. So share this with friends, with colleagues. They still have time to join. Make sure you share that, you click that share button. And also stay for the end, because we're going to have a feedback form, which is very useful, not only for us at Med School Extra to improve these sessions for you, but also for our speaker, so that he can adjust the future talks for you as well. It's always so important to give feedback at the end, and you also get a certificate at the end for attending this session. Also, make sure to give us a follow on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. We are always posting about our webinars there and other exciting news as well. We have some very, very exciting news coming in January, which is going to really help you in your career. But if you have joined us for previous webinars that we have started very recently, welcome again. If you haven't, make sure to give us a follow on social media so that you keep up to date to everything that's happening, and also with the webinars that are coming up. So without further ado, we have Dr. André Fernandes here. He is working as a clinical fellow in trauma and orthopedics in London. He was born in Portugal, raised in Angola, graduated from the Czech Republic, and then he has experienced a wide variety of cultures and people. So he has a lot of experience traveling around, going through different healthcare systems. And then he has recently come to the UK. So he's going to really share that experience of adapting to the NHS and giving tailored advice to make you a competitive applicant so that you can practice in the UK. Not only if you are an international student or a doctor, but also if you are from the UK, how to really improve and tailor your career development towards being a good doctor in the NHS. So welcome, Dr. André. Very excited for this talk. So without further ado, let's get started. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Amanda, for that enthusiastic introduction. It's very good. I have moved now, so I'm not currently working in London. I'm just moved up north near York, but either way, that's not really that interesting for the purpose. I have been mostly raised in Portugal, as you said, then went through Angola, medical school in Prague, And that is when my decision was made, in the sense of where do I want to go with my career. Portugal is really good, but not the best career pathway and the career option for medicine at the moment. So at the time I was considering going to Germany. I was ironing out my B2 level in German, but eventually I decided I didn't want to have that handicap and have that on top of me, as in having to practice medicine on a completely separate language. I I ended up, let's say, in January 2019, decided that I want to come to the UK, and I found myself struggling to find some like clear guidance on how to come, especially for international medical graduates. Is always very tricky to find a clear guide. The GMC website's very good with the documentation side of things, but then scoring the job, getting the best job for your career pathway, getting the appropriate support before you actually get into a training post, it's very hard to find the necessary support. And since then, I've been involved not only with right now with Med School Extra, with a couple of associations, try to just pass on the knowledge that I've gathered, and also motivate people on to making the jump and the choice of moving into the UK. So one thing I will ask is for people to sort of post in the comment box below in YouTube where you guys are coming from, because with that information, as in where are you graduating from? Is it UK and non-UK? And is it EU country, meaning European Union, or non-EU? Because with that information, I can sort of stream down the talk a little bit more. I'm happy to answer any question regarding my experience. You have all my CV uploaded onto my website, fernandesmd.com. And I've been providing some sort of guidance, more streamed down guidance into getting started in the NHS, getting into specialty training, and specifically career guidance. You can check testimonials for people that I've helped. This has been completely for free because I'm just building up the experience and building up the sort of business. But I'm happy to take emails. Just get in touch with me. You have my social media links on top. I'm relatively active there, but just drop me an email and we can have a chat. And I'm sure I'll have find the time to help you out. But without further ado, let's then get started with the presentation. As I said, do post on the YouTube box. The moderators will go through the questions, and on the specific slides, we'll make a pause and we'll address any concerns in a timely manner. So thank you for Med School Extra. As you said, we'll just jump right into it, and we'll go into the nuances of getting started in the NHS. Starting off the bat with the GMC registration, it does vary where you're coming from. So things you will realize on the GMC website is that you can either have a provisional registration, a full registration, a specialist or GP registration. So I think the bottom two don't really apply to any of us right now. Either you'll need a provisional or a full registration. Mostly the biggest difference that you'll find is anyone that's UK based, as in graduates from the UK medical school system, will have to apply for provisional registration. They'll be granted the full registration after their F1 year. That is their foundation year one. But anyone coming from the outside of the UK, they'll be considered sort of overqualified depending on the faculty they're coming from, and they'll have to apply for a full registration. I'm oversimplifying things. It does depending on the country that you're coming from, but let's keep it simple. So UK-based professionals usually through provisional, and then they'll be granted at the end of the F1. And non-UK-based professionals usually will have to apply to a full registration. In my specific case, from Charles University, that is in Czech Republic, Prague, we're considered to have too many international credits to be able to apply for a provisional registration and then go through the motions of F1, F2, as in foundation training. And the only way we can come into the UK and we can actually start our practice is through full registration systems. And that means we won't be allowed to do an F1, but we're allowed to apply for the foundation program as a standalone F2. We'll get into that. But this is the GMC way of doing things right now. Just bear in mind that things are changing. For example, in 2024, there might be an extra step, but as of now, for example, with the pandemic, with Brexit happening or has happened not so long ago, things might change. So I always advise people to go into the official sources, go into the GMC website. Don't just take someone else's say, specifically, let's say a forum that you found that someone posted 3 months ago might not be the most official updated information. If you have any queries, just email the GMC. They're really good. Or even call them and they'll address all your concerns, and it will be a valid source of information, as in a reliable source that you can actually take forward and implement. Through the full registration pathway, sort of the same criteria for the half or the provisional registration, but through the full registration pathway, there's a bunch of information that you'll need. As you can see on the screen, this first one is the one that's been added on since the UK left the EU, as in you need to have your primary medical qualification validated by an external platform, an external third-party assessor, meaning the Epic platform is the one that people use these days. I'll show you the website quickly here on Epic. And this is the electronic portfolio for international credentials. And this will be the way for you to get your skills validated and your qualification, your medical degree validated to the point that will be recognized by the GMC. So it's one extra step. Before, as part of the EU had some rights to claim or back your claims, as in that Charles University, in my case, is a recognized medical entity, and my degree would be validated. Now they need a certificate from Epic, which would have different set of criteria and different things that you'll need to submit in order to get the official certificate. And with this, then you're allowed to go through the GMC registration. So you'll need your qualification to be verified by Epic. That'll be plus minus £100 and takes up to 2 months. So it is a lengthy process. Then, because it goes bounces back and forth in between your faculty and then Epic, and then Epic back to the faculty confirming everything. So it is a bit of a lengthy process. Furthermore, you have to prove that you're capable of speaking English to a certain degree. At the moment, it's 7.5 average with a minimum of 7 in all sections. Oh, I think this is actually a minimum of 8. A minimum of 7, but you need to average at 7.5, meaning you will have to score 8 in a few sessions. Copy of a passport, a certificate of good standing, either from the place of graduation or your home country. And you'll need to declare if you have a big break, let's say after medical school, you took like a 2 or 3 gap years, you'll need to formally justify those. A few more things. And the last bullet point is in 2024, well, they keep postponing it, but the GMC is considering standardizing the whole approach. Because let's say for non-UK graduates, there's one process. For UK graduates, there's a different process. For non-UK, non-EU graduates, there's a third process that you need to go. They're considering on standardizing and applying like a sort of step-like, as in the United States step exam, entrance exam to practice medicine in the UK, as in to get your GMC registration, you'd have to do a board exam type of thing. It's still pending. We just keep on hearing rumors. It was postponed from 2022 and 2020 and 2021 to 2024, but we don't really know. But let's say if you're a third year medical school, it's worth keeping yourself in check and keeping updated with the GMC, because this might be implemented, and that would change the whole process as it is known right now. For the full registration, if you're a non-UK graduate, you'll need to have everything translated into English officially, recognized by a lawyer or a notary, and everything will be sort of submitted through the portal, and you'll get an email confirmation. The fees associated for new doctors at the time that I checked, it was 156, but might vary up and down a little bit. And I'll quickly show you the website so you're familiar. This is the GMC website, everything that we've been through, and it's a very, very easy to use. You can literally click, all right, what type of registration do I actually want? They'll query you a few things, they'll ask you a few questions, and with that, it'll prompt you specifically for the type of registration that applies to your case. And as you go through, they'll explain every single step of what you might need. And and what exactly entails applying for a full registration. The PLAB
Dr.
test.
Andre,
Yeah.
were you showing the website from the
Yep.
GMC? We can't see that. We can only see your slides.
Oh, sorry. Let me try and share again. I think, what about now?
Now we can.
Ooh. So you didn't actually see the Epic website, did you?
No, we didn't.
Oh, really? All right. I'll show you the Epic platform quickly. I'm sorry for that. If anything goes wrong with the presentation, just feel free to interrupt me, yeah?
All right, thanks.
Yeah, so Epic website, here it is. So to certify your credentials from a third party, if you're non-UK graduate, and back to the GMC, I was in this previous section, which is types of registration, everything that we talked through, including the full registration for non-UK graduates with all of the steps. So they'll work through the steps with you. It's a very easy to use platform, and it explains as in a guide step by step for any type of query that you might have. You can literally start the process, don't even pay anything, but it'll prompt you questions, as I was saying, and you'll have to answer, and they'll guide you through the most appropriate way of registering with the GMC. Let's say you're a team doctor for a sports event, they'll say, all right, you probably only need the temporary sort of clearance, but yeah, you get what I mean. Back to the presentation. So that is full registration. Back in my year, but it's sort of the same now. COVID does delay a few things, but the initial assessment, as in confirming that they've received everything and they're processing the documents, takes up to 5 days, 5 working days. And then there's a maximum waiting period implemented of 28 days for them to confirm or that you are actually eligible for a full, well, whatever registration with the GMC they're eligible to. But with that, then you might need to come. There was a brief period that they did this virtually, but I think now it's again face-to-face. You might need to come for an identity check in the UK. That is a, let's say, 10 to 15 minute interview. There's 2 interview test GMC offices. I think it's Manchester and London, and you'll book it online in ahead of time, but it needs to be completed within 3 months after receiving the approval. That's good to take note. Let me maximize this again. Any questions, guys? Any questions related to GMC at the beginning of the talk, or anything that I can address at the moment?
We don't have any questions in the chat at the moment, Dr. Fernandes.
All right.
Happy to carry on?
Yeah, I'll keep on going. Just feel free to post any questions that you might have. I know it's quite a bit of info, and this was the least interesting part, but hopefully it will get easier from now on. And we can always go back to the same topic. So as for training pathways, I think specifically for UK graduates, they're quite familiar with the ways you can actually go through training in the UK. For those that don't know, here's a really good picture that I have even saved up on my mobile phone, on my iPhone, just because every time anyone from my family asks, it's the same conversation over and over again. And it's very confusing, very different from what things are done or how things are done in Portugal. So I always have this, and anytime anyone asks, so what are you doing exactly, Andre? Well, aren't you a doctor now? And I'm like, yes, I'm a doctor, but I'm in training, I'm a junior. And it's just the same conversation over and over again, and the picture really helps. So undergraduate years, depending on where you're coming from, 4 to 6, and then you come into the UK, and you can either, so these are all of the official training pathways. Depending on the level of knowledge that you have in your medical faculty, you'll have to apply either straight to the foundation program, so straight to the full foundation program, which is a 2-year program, or you'll have to apply to the F2 standalone if you want to go straight into training programs. Now, the thing that you need to remember is all of this, meaning you can literally get your consultant grade through non-official posts or non-trainee posts, meaning with what people say, it's trust grade positions. So I should have probably not kept this on a highlight vanishing pen. I'll just use a normal pen, which would be a trust grade position. A trust grade position means you're not under the wing of a training program of a Royal College sponsored program. but there are ways of getting certificates at every single stage of your training, meaning you can complete your foundation competencies without going through the foundation program. You can complete your core surgical competencies without going through the core training or any core medical training. And the same thing for the higher specialty training. You can literally even complete your consultancy having your certificate of CCT or completion of training certificate without going through a training program, a formal training program. Now, I'm not advising this. There are benefits of going through training posts. You got a much more support and a lot more sponsors in a way that you'll have money allocated specifically as a budget throughout your whole training. But we'll go into that in a bit. As for people just moving out of medicine that are non-UK based, meaning people that are just coming into the UK, getting started, having a full registration from the GMC, you have two options. Either you apply for a standalone F2, because you'll probably be considered overqualified for the full length of the program, or you go into trust grade positions. So you can do trust grade positions as an F1 or as an F2 at any of the levels. My personal advice is definitely try and pick up an F1 post, so a job that's F1 equivalent with a trust grade position, because the system might be very different from where you're coming from. Meaning, from Portugal, in my personal experience, the public healthcare system in Portugal is very different. And no matter how good of a clinician you might be, just the fact that, I don't know, at the trust that you're going to start your job in the UK, they use pagers and not phones, or the electronic system is completely different, or the way ward rounds are set and standardized across are different from your practice. It's always good to not take the responsibility of an F2, which, depending on your specialty, you'll be first on call. You'll have F1s under your wing as a recently graduated, recently moved doctor to the UK. It's much rather preferable to be an F1, so a least experienced doctor with a bit less responsibility. And whenever you feel like it, then you move on to an F2 post. Now, that said, people sometimes try to apply directly into F2 posts, but that will be even harder because you'll have to have a very competitive CV to apply directly to an F2 post if no one actually ever heard of you practicing medicine in the UK. So just going back a few notches, just so people get a bit more organized in the head. As a recently graduated doctor moving into the UK, meaning non-UK based, you won't be able to apply for the full program. You'll have a full registration. You'll be overqualified for the F1 plus F2. You'll have to apply either for the standalone F2 or trust grade positions. My advice is take up trust grades posts as an F1, and then either sort of time your application for the F2 standalone, the official training as a F2 standalone, or just keep on going with trust grade positions. We'll get back to that in a second. Don't worry. I know it's very confusing, but we'll definitely run through a few times so people can go through can get it in their minds and get a bit more clarification. So the platforms used through, let's say, certified your foundation knowledge or the official way of going through either trust grade or non-trust grade through the foundation years is either through Oriel being the official recruitment portal for the foundation program, and the CREST form. So the CREST form is the form that if you do go through a trust grade position, you'll have to get everything signed off in order to prove towards the entity that's going to hire you afterwards that you have the competencies to practice as a safe doctor. I'll show you the CREST form quickly. So I have it here loaded up. So it's basically every single thing that you would tick off as a doctor doing a formal foundation post, but in the form of a document. So every single section from the GMC, for example, section 1 in the professional behavior and trust, and you'll have to go through this, get it either personally witness or provide evidence, and then sign and countersign by your consultant. See? And it's through every single section in the GMC as basically stating that you're a safe doctor, and you're able to look after patients and work in a professional manner in a team-based environment. So it's a very big document, I think 5-6 pages. You'll have to provide the certificate for your BLS. You'll have to provide the certificate for the ALS and a few more things at a clinical audit quality improvement side, prescriptions, and a few more things like confirmation of death, end of life. So you will have to have a lot of evidence. If you go through a formal foundation standalone or the full foundation program, you get all of this done through the Oriel portal in a means of submitting work-based assessments, mini clinical examinations, and all of that through an online portal. If not, you'll have to collect the evidence. You can still use the Oriel portal if you want, but you'll have to get everything countersigned at the CREST form if you want to complete and have your foundation competencies signed off. So let me share this and have it full screen. So I know it's a bit confusing, but basically, if you are UK based, you go through Oriel, that's fine, foundation program. If not, you'll have to go through either the standalone F2 because you're overqualified for the F1, as we were saying, or go through the CREST form. So take up trust grade posts and eventually sign your CREST form in order for you to be able to qualify to any of the branches of specialist training. When I say specialist, it's specialist encompassing core and higher specialty training. All right. As like looking forward, whenever you're thinking about practicing or getting into training programs or getting into a specialty in the UK, the best way, in my opinion, is to work backwards. One of the websites is really good. It's the Health Education Specialty Training website. And the link is still here on the presentation. And I'll show you what it has. It has the person specifications for every single specialty you might be interested in. Whether it's a specialty that has, as I was showing here, a core branch or a run-through program. The difference being, for those who don't know, if you get into a run-through program, you'll be guaranteed a position throughout the whole length of your post, but not every specialty has this. Or in the other case, a few of the specialties have some sort of core branch. Let's say within the branch of surgery, the core surgical training, you would then go to higher training of vascular, trauma and orthopedics, general surgery, and so on. Or if you want to do medical as an internal medicine, you'll go through the IMT or the internal medicine or the core medical training, and then you'd be subspecialized in cardio, renal, nephro, whatever you're thinking of within internal medicine. These are separate application periods. Whilst the run-through post you do once, you get the post guaranteed for the whole length of training. So here you'd have to apply to the core branch and then onto the specialty branch. One other branch, for example, is the ACCS, so the emergency medicine branch, as in the acute common STEM branch, which then branches out to, let's say, emergency medicine, anesthetics, and I think intensivism is one of the most recent specialties. But yeah, that's the difference between. So there are definitely benefits of run through or having a run through. It will allow you to settle down for a more lengthy span of time, but they are usually a bit more competitive. Let's go back to the website. So over here, person specifications, Health Education England, you'll have every single specialty. If you see that it's typed off as a CT position, it means it's a core training based program. If it's ST3, meaning it's already at this next step of the application. But if it says ST1, it means it's a run through. So it's one as in year one post graduation from the foundation program. Sorry, not post graduation. So post completion of foundation years. But the first year, meaning it's a run-through program that you would apply to. And then anything that you might want and consider, or every single specialty that's under the Health Education England program for medical specialties will be stated here. Let's say you're very much interested in the run-through program of histopathology. You bring up the person specifications, and there is eligibility criteria, meaning you will have to have this or you won't be even considered when you apply. And you'll have recommended or desirable criteria, which is, well, if you have this, it will look good and you'll have better chances. It's a very broad document. It doesn't really specify or provide you much guidance in the sense of this, if you have this many audits, you'll be okay, or if you have this many publications, you'll be okay. No, it's mostly just the legalities of it and the bureaucracy of it, as in you need to have this registration, this amount of experience post, and then, or for example, the CREST signed off, and all of the legalities of it, as in language skills, fitness to practice, no previous health condition, all of that. But it's a good thing to have, as in to start guiding your thought process. Let me go back to the presentation. And what my biggest advice when people are thinking of coming into the UK, and let's say you need to start looking at getting a job and looking for either a trust grade post or your rotations for the foundation program that you've picked, is definitely looking ahead. If you already know where you'll want to do as a medical specialty, it will definitely be of value for you, because you'll be able to stream down your goals and your objectives. You'll have a clear guides within, or working backwards from the person's specifications, and from a few more things that I'll present, you'll be able to work back and see exactly what you'll need to do in the next year in order to build up the most competitive portfolio, let's say for core medical. Let's imagine you want to do cardiology. So you'll look at the S33 application, person specifications, and the self-assessment portfolios, and look at what would be the ideal candidate for ST3 cardiology. Most likely you'll have to go through core medical. So you'll look at the most competitive and the best recommended portfolio assessments for a strong candidate for core medical, and knowing what's necessary to get into IMT or internal medicine or core medical training. Then all right, within my 2 years of foundation or 2 years of trust grade posts, I'll need to work really hard in these specific sessions. We'll talk about a few examples. I'll give more specifically an example through surgery, but that's basically it. Any questions regarding this little bit of the presentation, this side of the presentation? It's a bit messy, but
we do have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So firstly, how difficult was it to complete the GMC document to prove your competencies? And was it hard for kind of getting seniors to sign it off and for getting proof of those competencies?
So I assume we're talking about the CREST form. It varies. I'll have to be honest. The consultant that I've worked with, he trusted me. He knew my work. There's a few legal criteria, a few legal requirements for you to have in order to sign it. You can't just work with a consultant for like a day and he can sign you off. No, you need to have, I think it's a minimum of 3 months of work with a specific consultant. So your clinical supervisor or the consultant that's going to sign you off through the GMC, through the CREST form. And it varies. So my consultant sort of trusted me. But he was, let's say, very fast paced. He didn't have time. He was always busy with theater. He just said, Andre, prep everything, give me a folder for the evidence. I'll quickly skim through it during fracture clinic, and then I'll sign you off. So I prepped the file. I had everything organized per section, the CREST form on top. And he literally skimmed through, just asked, you have the ALS certificate? And I was like, yeah. And then he was like, oh yeah, audits, yeah, I know, yeah, you presented this at the M&M meeting, yep, and signed me off. But I've heard of consultants that do a very more diligent job, especially if they don't trust you, or let's say if you go into a job but barely see that consultant, and then after 3 months, you're like, oh, can you sign me off as a safe doctor? He won't know you. He'll likely want to sit down and go through every single section and make sure you provided evidence. And that might be a bit laborious. So it's very short answer. It's very variable, but I would definitely advise that whatever consultant you pick to sit down and go through, just let them know ahead of time. Say, my goal within this placement as a trust grade post or whatever it is to get signed off in 6 months or in 8 months. So I would like you to help me get that done. So I'll be working actively with you at an audit capacity, research capacity, clinically, to provide you the evidence and the confidence for you to sign me off. Because they can click as personally witness, and that doesn't need providing evidence. But if they click evidence provided, you will have to have some evidence backing you. So work-based assessments through oral or forms or specific letters or logbooks. So yeah, it's variable, but it's definitely possible, especially if you organize.
Great, thank you.
That was a really long-winded answer, sorry.
Another question. So as an international medical graduate, a non-EU graduate, is it possible to apply for provisional registration and start FY1 training?
As far as I can see, so you would go as a non-EU, non-UK graduate. If you simulate the application through the GMC, they would send you through the PLAB route, and through the PLAB route, I do think there's a chance of applying as a full or through the full foundation program. But if there isn't, or if it has changed in the past, let's say 6 months or 8 months since the last time I checked, they will prompt you. They'll say you'll have to do PLAB and then apply for a full registration, which would mean you'd have to either apply for trust grade posts as an F1 or F2 standalone. But the GMC will guide you through that. So whenever you do pick that it's non-UK, non-EU, let's say you graduated from Dubai, they'll prompt you and say you'll have to go to the PLAB route, meaning the assessment OSCE-based type of exam, plus the language, and then they'll sort of explain to you or clarify to you if it is possible to go through the formal foundation program F1 plus F2. I do think it was possible, but things are changing. They keep changing every year, and it's hard to keep track sometimes.
Thank you. And another question, did you apply to F1 or F2 standalone, and how did you make your application competitive enough? That kind of links to a couple of questions we've also had about advice you would give to medical students on building their CV.
Definitely. So I think that's a really good link and a good segue onto the next section, which is basically how do you find a job, no matter what type of job it is, at whatever stage you are in your career. And in my personal experience, from what I've experienced, I started the GMC process, I think, late December, like close to January or early January. I got the answer back from the GMC before February, meaning late January. I think went to Manchester really early February, like 5th of February, to get the official GMC registration. It was a very underwhelming experience. I'm just going to tell you. I don't know if they changed the thing. Basically, I flew from Portugal onto the gym to Manchester, stayed at a hotel, had a nice breakfast, went to the offices, expected to get something, at least a document or something more formal. But basically, they just say, hey, you got the GMC registration. If you check online with your name and this number, you'll be able to print the certificate. So it felt a bit underwhelming, but still it was all right. So then I started applying in mid-February, and I think I got the job in March. It was like mid-March, let's say 15th, 18th of March. So it took me a month before the point that I've had a GMC registration that I've started to work in the UK. But I did have a decent CV. We'll get into how to build that and how to get or guarantee a good chance, and the formal ways of actually finding a post in the UK in this next session, this next section of the webinar. There are a few ways that you can do that. In order to find jobs, you go through the www NHS jobs website or the indeed.com. Both of them are really good, and you'll see how you'll be able to find. I'll quickly show you. I think it's easier if I show you. You'll be able to set keywords and set specific criteria for where, let's say you don't want to work in London, you can set everything outside of London. So you can then advanced search criteria in order to find the best suitable job. Let's say if you're looking at trust grade F1 posts, you can type whatever you want. You can then stream it down to doctors. I think I've typed just trust grade F1, but the F1 search term is not a good one. But let's say then you go into the application and you start, you'll see that there's a lot of things that you'll need to fill in. So mostly, as any job throughout your whole medical career in the UK, it's the application process is subdivided into sections. We'll go through that. And the best way, or there's a few things that you can do before stepping into the UK. So I'll show you how I organize usually my life. I use Google Drive to organize my life, and these are the sections that I'll have to that I had to complete for the CST. But specifically for my CV, this is how I organize my evidence. So if you work or if you try and build up your CV in any of these sections, you'll be all right. It helps. But what people are looking, what recruiters are looking in a recently graduated doctor that moved to the UK is that you're a safe doctor. No one expects you to have a big literature publication on a systematic review or a big scientific conference oral presentation. They want to see that you're safe and you've had a little bit of exposure. So let's say you can possibly, or most likely, you can work on the courses. You can work on having already the BLS or even the ACLS, the Advanced Cardiac Life Support, or ALS, the UK version. You can work on having, which is what I did in my time. So before I moved in, I had the ACLS, I had the ITLS, which is the ATLS equivalent, meaning the Advanced Trauma Life Support course, which is really good if you're thinking about surgical jobs. You can have a few more things. You can have online modules on teaching. You can try and get involved with some degree of teaching at your uni. So preparing or setting up societies and teaching groups for juniors. It's all about having some sort of evidence that provides the recruiters that you're actually dedicated into not just coming in and doing clinical and timing out. They want someone that would like to have some degree of career development, because the system is built in a way that they don't want non-specialized doctors that stick to just an F1 post for their whole life. They want specialists who are able to sort out the major stuff and actually build up a bank of knowledge. So there's a few things that you can do, and we'll go through whenever I'm going through my application, my CV properly. I'll explain you in a bit more depth. But in regards to building and a strong CV in order to get and secure a post in the NHS, you'll need to see what's available to you and focus on clinical skills. That's my biggest point of advice. Are there any more questions, or should we just keep going with the presentation? Because I sort of already started rambling about the finding a job section.
No, there's no more at the moment.
All right, so I'll just keep going, because I think it's either way, it's the topic that we're going to go through afterwards. So as I was saying, I think the best thing that you can do is work back. If you know what you're going to do, is work back, meaning if you know you want something surgical, look through the person's specifications specifically for the posts that you're interested within surgery. Likely will run through core surgery or through a run through post, and then see what the person's specifications are for that. There's a few things that are worth considering. Smaller hospitals usually have more opportunity and less competition, but that does vary. It varies with staffing levels, because if it's an understaffed small hospital, very unlikely that you'll be able to have the exposure that you actually need. So as I was saying, and it's a bit repetitive, but like prepping ahead, it's definitely the way to go. I'll explain to you, and I'll do an example with for example, the core surgery program, because it's very easy to get lost and get involved in every single project that your consultant mentions, but you need to sort of safeguard yourself. You need to protect yourself from overworking on unnecessary things. So at the same time, you don't want to get involved in too many projects that don't even score you points for your application, but you also want to be smart about what points you actually need. Is it worth to take a full PhD, 2 years, pay fees to then just get one extra point on your application, or actually running, let's say for 3 months, a full cycle, 2 cycles, clinical audit, design the project, and then score 8 points on that specific session. So you need to be a bit clever about it. And if you are split between different specialties and you don't really know what you want to do, just try and pick a job that's surgical, a job that's medical, and see where you would like to find yourself in a few years. But I'll go through one specific example of how to build a portfolio or a CV, a competitive CV, even for a trust grade position, but more specifically for eventually for the specialty training application. This was the Health Education England website. MediBuddy is one of the good websites that I've found, and then provided really good guidance on the left-hand side, the tabs on every single, well, most of the specialties in the UK. there's a guide on how to apply, and then you can click on this, for example, on the subsection from core surgery. You can have a bit more clarification. So on the left-hand side, you can have how to maximize your points, and it's an extensive explanation of the whole process. And then it goes on to the self-assessment portfolio, specifically the self-assessment portfolio for the point system that gets you shortlisted for the core surgery application. So let's say you're thinking about surgery, you want to find a job in the UK as a trust grade doctor. You should think about, all right, is it worth for me to pick up an internal medicine job that will have little to no exposure to surgery, especially if at the application, at self-assessment portfolio now, they value a lot of surgical related stuff. So they want surgical courses. They want your involvement in surgical cases. You're not going to get that if you take up a trust grade F1 position in internal medicine. They want you to have taster weeks or some degree of exposure as an elective in surgery. They want quips and prizes in surgically related topics. So the same applies to any specific post that you apply to, but you do need to be smart about it. So you need to build up your CV already looking at the core branch or the run-through program, and not really just for the F1 post. So because whatever you do for the core surgical application or the core medical application, the run-through program for radiology will definitely benefit you in a non-specific trust grade post. Maybe you do want to pick the ones that expose you to that. And I'll quickly go back to the presentation and do a little stop again to see, because I did waffle a little bit. Do you guys have any questions regarding this?
Yeah, we do have one question. For a medical student who's non-EU, can they go straight into ST1 without going through core surgical training for ENT?
For ENT. So I think ENT does have run through. That would mean we can check this year's, because these posts change yearly. We can quickly check the ENT. Oh, is it under ENT? Should be under. We can quickly check, because sometimes they change it on a yearly basis. Let's say they don't have enough posts to have a run through post, so they would stop run through posts that year. Let me try and quickly check. What's the acronym for ENT here? Because it's not coming up as ENT or. All right, here we go. So this year they didn't have run through. So that means that yes, if you wanted to go through run through, you wouldn't be able to, because they literally didn't open run through post. They only opened ST3, not ST1. For you to apply to an ST3 post, you just bring up the document and you'll see that as long as you are eligible, you'll be all right. But will you be eligible applying for a ST3 post run through in the UK if you're recently graduated? Unlikely. So for ENT, they want you to have the MRCS by the date of examination results coming out. They will have, you wanted to have a GMC, but that would be sort of mandatory. They want to have evidence of completion of CT1 or ST1 competences. That is to CREST, a variation of CREST with a H, which is the higher surgical training. So CREST technically. So let's say technically you'd have to find someone that signs you off for the CREST, which is a much more demanding form, not as simple as the trust grade 1, which has a lot of surgically related skills. So it says I'm able to, perform 10 hip replacements with safety and supervision. So you'd have to have someone sign you off. You'd have to have the GMC registration, foundation competency signed off also, and the MRCS exam. If you have all of these three things, and I think that should be it. If you have all these three things, yes, you'd be able to apply directly to an ST3 post. But let's say if you're just out of medical school from August, it would be very unlikely that you would have all of these three things signed off. And it might be hard to get them signed off not being in the UK practicing medicine, because then the way the GMC or the Royal College of, in this case, ENTs recognizes things will be a bit harder. They will question your sign-offs a bit with a bit more difficulty if it's not signed off by a UK-based consultant with a GMC number on it. It's still possible, but as you can see, I think the timeline might be a bit too short for you to be able to have 3 major documents in one post-degree classification, meaning the exam or the postgraduate in surgery in MRCS, if you're just coming off fresh out of medical school. I don't know if that made sense, but yeah.
Thank you. We do have another question as well about medical CV. So when do you recommend that medical students start putting it together? Closer to the end of medical school or in the early years? And what should the format of a CV be?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say you should start prepping your CV probably yesterday, because it's quite an important thing. No matter how empty it is, it definitely works as a motivator factor and pushes you into thinking, all right, I have the self-assessment portfolio for surgery. I have my CV in front of me. Let me score myself. That's the presentation. The presentation that I have would go literally would segue into this. So I would ask you guys to force to score yourselves, no matter what application you're thinking about. Is it core surgery? Is it the acute ACCS anesthetics? No matter what self-assessment portfolio you'll use, this is the one for anesthetic CT one, just so you can see a few different ones. No matter what specialty you're thinking of, it's like score yourself, see how good or poorly you're doing. Let me just reset my video because I think the quality was a bit bad. See how good or well you're doing, and see what can you work towards, because whatever the point system is, whatever they value as in the max points, it's exact same things that you should be working at. As an F1, as a medical school student, you can start working on these off the bat. Some might be difficult. Some might say you need to be a doctor in order to have them, but all of the teaching related skills, you can start working on them. So I would say get your CV in order. I'll show you mine and the format that I use. And with having your CV in order, self-assess yourself, like score yourself against what specialty you want to go through and see how well you score, because then it will provide you the guide of, all right, I have literally no course in regards to anesthetics, but I could do basics, I can do ATLS, I can do EPLS, I can do simulator courses. If I do 3 of them, I'll score. So my goal will be throughout the F1 year, I'm going to do 3 courses. So ahead, you can book them. Even if you're just graduating, you can book them ahead of time. You'll have sponsorship for these. You can have your money back. Even as a first grade position, you'll have a budget. I think it's up to 1,000 or 1,100 a year pounds to pay for courses and personal development. So you can prep ahead, but you won't know where you find yourself if you don't even have a CV. So definitely do it as early as you can. I'm just going to quickly stop sharing the screen because I do have my home address on the CV, and I'll open up the CV and now share again, but without revealing my home address. I think, yeah, I've already changed places, but still, let's keep it simple. So this is my format, is the one that you can find online on any medical specialty or medical CV development platform or forum. You should start with your education, where have you graduated from, then on to sort of the highlights of your life or roles, active roles that you have. In my case, it's Fracture School, which is an online teaching platform that I've started like last year, well, this year, and it's based off just providing knowledge in TNO, because I'm inclined and I really want to get into an ST3 post in a training post in trauma and orthopedics. So I've started a platform with that because I like teaching and I like trauma and orthopedics, and this is just to provide the tools to people or healthcare professionals, recently graduate doctors, ENPs or nurses or physios or GPs on how to deal with trauma and orthopedic patients, because they're usually quite visual, quite quite upsetting for the frontline workers to deal with trauma patients, especially like exposed fractures, dislocated limbs, and people don't really know how to deal with them. They always feel underskilled. So this is basically how Fracture School came to life. Collab Ortho is another project that I have. I'm just sort of the design lead and a bit of a teacher also. Same sort of principle as Fracture School, but I'm just on the design aspect. Then you go into experience. Where have you been? Which posts have you had formally? Then you should start either with research or leadership and teaching, whatever's biggest for you. So whatever's strongest and biggest for you, you should just put it ahead, because whatever people are scrolling through the CV, they will scroll less and less the further down your CV they are. So the first few sections, that's the ones they'll keep in mind. So I went through leadership, then research work with the presentations, onto teaching, prizes, then audits and quips. That's how I organize mine. I like this format. This is literally the format that you can get on Pages. There's like 3 or 4 templates for CVs on Pages app from Apple, from the MacBook, but the same through Google Sheets on the Google Drive. You can also get CV templates. It's not really about the template. It's only about having the clear information, a clear section, organized way of showing the information, and then the level of involvement of the project. A few words, if it's something that's not that common, a few words or a short paragraph on describing exactly what the course is or what the project was does help. So that's my CV. And that would be it. That would be the end of the talk, at least from what I can remember. Any more questions, guys?
Thank you so much, Dr. Fernandes. No, we don't have any more questions at the moment.
I just have a question myself, actually. I have a question myself. So that's your full CV, which it's quite long, and quite detailed. How people say you should keep your CV when you're applying for a job to 1 or 2 pages. Like maybe just front and back. How do you target the things that are most relevant? How do you shorten it, or do you actually submit that whole document?
So I think people say CV 1 to 2 pages if it's mostly non-medical jobs. Medical jobs are a bit different. This is like the document that I have with the whole information. If I know it's going to be something more specific that I don't really need to talk about, the audit that I've done 2 years ago, I'll just copy paste the document and then like sort of edit everything and cut everything out. You can literally keep it even more simple. You can say, I've done 4 quips, 4 audits, 5 courses, 10 courses, and then just put them in brackets. You can definitely simplify them. But what I found through the UK is you never really apply just with your CV. It's always through platforms, which will have sections where you need to provide the evidence. And what this made it made really easy for me, for example, for the core surgery application, is that having a detailed CV with all of your information there, and let's say Google Drive, which is what I use because it's a cloud-based system, with every single file organized, it just allows me to then copy paste the relevant section within the platform. So you won't use your CV per se throughout your medical career in the UK, just your CV. It'll be more of Oriel for foundation, Oriel for core surgical training, then same thing for run through or ST3 posts. So yes, you'll need to upload it in the end, or whenever things go back to face-to-face portfolios, you need to build up a portfolio. But I'd rather have more info and then trim it down if needed for a specific, let's say, post in an editorial letter that they don't really care about audits. Of course, I'll edit it. But I think for medics is a bit different. We do run really extensive CVs.
Yeah, absolutely. Most students, they have this doubt about what's the difference between a portfolio and a CV, and how do you go about it?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, a portfolio will be the extensive, not only the CV, but the extensive version of explaining the nuances of the projects, of the stuff that you have in your CV. It might have even a front sort of statement as in a cover letter, or a personal statement in the back also saying why you think you're the best applicant for this specific post or position. And might have logbooks also for surgical cases or procedures, and a few more things like recommendation letters and so, but it's usually a bit more complex. But I do appreciate that my CV is a bit long. Not that it's specifically
Lots
a bad
of
thing, because
experiences. Yeah,
I
lots
don't
of development.
I don't submit it like that just per se, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we have any other questions on the chat, Mia?
No, that's everything. I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Fernandes, and thank you, Amanda, for running it. And yeah, this will be available on our YouTube. So if anyone wants to catch up with it, they'll be on there.
We also wanted to give a special thanks to Charlotte, who is another member of our team here, who has put the session together, and she has organized everything on the background as well. So Charlotte, there she is.
Go Charlotte.
Thank you so much. It was a really, really good talk. It was really interesting. Thank you, Dr. Fernandes.
Thank you. I waffled a little bit. I know I waffle a little bit, but it's fine. I think it's fine.
No, it was amazing, honestly. It was amazing. And it will be available for everyone that wants to rewatch it and take more notes, because I know there was a lot of content in there. But don't worry, you can rewatch, you can, process that information back again and really go step by step, because it is a lot to
just send me an email, guys. Like, as I said, I've been like helping out, like literally from Charles University and all around from Portugal, like 50 plus. I think I'm up to like 75 people. I should probably start charging, but I think it's hard to find like a clear guide. There was a time that I was publishing on YouTube. It's not something that I'm really doing now. Like, I've had a few subscribers, I've had a few topics on that, but it's not something that I'm really, really proud of. It's not really organized info, but I don't mind answering emails. I don't mind scheduling Zoom talks and really help out. Like, it makes a difference having someone walk through one-to-one with through your CV and your questions. So I really don't mind helping out and passing on the testimonial there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fernandes. I know that everyone appreciates that a lot. I'm also gonna share my screen now so that I can put up the feedback form link. But thank you again, Mia, Charlotte, Dr. Fernandes, everyone.
Look at Charlotte. She's like really enjoying the sun.
I know, it's just my background.
Where is that? Where did you find that picture?
I'm on my university account, so it's just outside my university campus, and
really nice.
They've got it as a Zoom picture, so I decided to put it as my background.
Yeah.
Just going to get it. And then the music is going to come back, as Dr. Fernandes likes it very much.
Clean Bandit. It's Clean Bandit. I had to Google it. It's Rather Be from Clean Bandit, but it's a piano cover, yeah.
Oh, you see?
Oh, guys, I'll probably head off soon. Thank you for having me, because I do have a night shift coming, and it's the first night shift that I'll have at this trust, so I need to figure out where to get scrubs and a bit more stuff. Like, my commute is short, but I just want to get there early, because they know what they say, early is on time and on time is late. So I'll say goodbye and let you go. Yeah, guys? Don't mind, right?
Thank you, Dr. Fernandes. That's amazing. Yeah.